the most important thing you can do with finances and with wealth is empower yourself. We too often outsource that, and then we feel nervous because we don't know what's going on. Like, I don't know if I'm going to have enough. I don't know. So taking back that power, and that's a really big thing that I talk about, is empowering people with their money. If I know where my money's going, or I know how much I'm earning, you are in charge of your dollars. You're the one that puts them to work. So money is something we have to earn over and over again. Wealth is money put to work. So if I can get the perspective of every dollar that I save and invest is now like a little employee that's working for me 24/7 for the rest of my life.
Power in your purpose, the C60 way.
My name is Jessica McNaughton. I am very excited today to introduce you to my friend, Lisa Smith. Lisa Smith is a wealth building coach, strategist, educator, and mentor. And for the last 20 years, she has helped thousands of people worldwide change their mind about money and their relationship with money. And today we are going to get into a wonderful conversation. Most of us did not grow up with a financial education. Many people today on the planet, most people I would argue, are still operating with no sense of a solid financial understanding and backing, and their relationship with money is upside down. So if you're somebody who regularly struggles with finances, or you would like to improve your financial situation, or you're somebody who really appreciates money and you enjoy making it, you enjoy spending it, and you'd like to save and earn more, this conversation is for you. Lisa, it's so great to see you. Thank you for joining me on Powering Your Purpose podcast.
Thank you for having me, Jessica.
Do you mind just sharing a little bit more about your background for our audience so they can understand the breadth and depth of your experience and expertise?
So my money journey started when I left home for college. I went to college and I thought, I need to figure this out or I'm going to be in trouble. Like, I was originally not very good with money, in my own opinion. We weren't formally taught about money. And I think that happens in a lot of families where you just hear comments made by, friends or by family. And so when I went to college, I thought, I've got to figure this out. So I started on a path of just educating myself. And I eventually ended up meeting a financial mentor. I was teaching school. I actually retired early from teaching school. So I was a school teacher for a long time. And as you know, they don't overpay teachers. So I had to figure out all of this finance stuff by myself. So I really dove in. I started reading books. I listened to podcasts, everything that I could do to teach myself. And I eventually started teaching at the university level. So I started teaching students how to become financially independent at 35 years old. And it's been an amazing situation. So I went from like knowing nothing to now feeling like this is one of the things that I love, and I love to talk about it, and I love to teach about it.
I appreciate that. I relate to what you're saying. I was primarily raised by a single mother, and for part of my life, I was raised by my grandparents too. And there was actually a time, I have never shared this publicly before, but there was a time in high school when we were actually homeless. So I've been through, what I would say a journey, having a parent that had really no financial skills and living up in an environment like that. And I started working at a very young age, cleaning houses and babysitting, and I was always working. So for me, work and grounding myself in work was a safe place to be. But I've had an interesting journey with money, and a lot of it is a mindset play. I've made money, I've lost money, I've made money again, but I too have had to work on my mindset, my education around it. Before we hit record on this, I was sharing with you something that I was noticing recently. I was noticing a lot of comments in some of our ads that we run, and people are talking about, gosh, this product C60, it's so expensive. I'll never be able to afford it. Oh, it's so expensive. And it's not an inexpensive product. That's a fact. It's not inexpensive because we're trying to have great profits. It's it's expensive because it's expensive to manufacture. That's just the fact of the matter. But the thing that really has got my mind spinning and why I feel this conversation with you is so important and timely is that reading these comments, like it struck me that when I reflect back on my own life and the times, in the times of my life where I felt like strapped for cash and feeling like I was upside down or wanting something that I couldn't afford, personally, I would have never proclaimed that publicly. I wouldn't have made a statement to what I believe is like the universe via social media about I'm so poor I can never afford it. Nor would I have ever said, oh, shame on you, company. I'm never going to buy your product because you're making things only for rich people. Because that's not the case. We're making products for people who want to take back control over their health. And, part of your health truly is your financial health. And that's why I really wanted to lean into a conversation with you. You help people change their mind about the relationship with money, about their energy with money. And to me, I think it's a real slippery slope if you're going to proclaim publicly in social media, or even just the language that comes out of your mouth, I'm so poor, I can't afford this. That might be the truth in this particular moment, in this snapshot in time, but that isn't true for your entire life unless that's something that you're intentionally seeking. Anybody, and this is the benefit and the beauty of living in America, is that we have the ability to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. I've done that, myself. I put myself through college multiple times, paid it all off, and nobody was helping me along the way. And I believe my mindset is that anything that you want to do, you truly can do it. You just need to keep working at it. But it does start with what you think about money. And so I really want to the benefit for those people out there, if you're triggered by money, you might want to click away. But we're going to get into it because I want to help with Lisa's support here, like we do with C60, neutralizing oxidative stress. I want to neutralize your fear around what this is. I want to help you potentially change your mind about your relationship with money because it's an energy game. Like C60 supports energy. Money literally is just energy. And so you've got to change your mind about it. So with that being said, Lisa, that's what's been kind of gnawing at me for the last few days where I'm like, man, people need help. And I want to bring an expert on to help people because complaining about it doesn't change your station in life. Taking responsibility does. So first thing out of the gate, Lisa, what do people need to know about mindset and money?
So let's start with the basics because I think perspective builds wealth. Fear does not build wealth, but perspective is really helpful in getting to a place of abundance. So money is a form of exchange. And if we can get to neutral, if we said an example would be a shovel. I can either dig a garden with a shovel or I can hit somebody in the head with a shovel. So money isn't inherently evil. It's just a form of exchange. And we've used seashells and coins in the past to signify this is what this represents and this is how much this is worth. So if you can just think about money as numbers with a dollar sign. I don't sit here and do math games in my head for fun. Although I talk about finances every day with all of my clients, I believe that your brain is the biggest wealth building machine that you have. It's a neutral organ and it takes commands. And so if I say things like, I'm never going to be rich, then my brain is going to work to make that true. If I say, up until now, I haven't been very good with money, or up until now, I've had this kind of a money story, then I can change that and it allows flexibility. So I believe your brain will just take orders. And if you say, I'm going to be financially independent by X date, or I want to pay off my debt, or I want to look at my finances and track, or all of the things that make people successful with finances, then your brain starts looking for ways to make that true. So I believe that we can be a good steward over money. So I personally believe that money is attracted to me because I'm a good steward with money. And I use the examples that I have found so much money in my life, and you probably have too. I've found 50s, $100 bills. I find dollars all the time, and my family tease me, and my nieces and nephews say, you could live off of the money you find. Well, it's not that much money, but they see me, and I just believe that money is attracted to me. But you have to have beliefs like that. If I believe that I'm a good steward of money because I am, and I also believe money, like even in foreign countries, I find money. I'm not looking in, vending machines. I'm not on the ground looking. It's just there. So having a belief that I can be good with money. And so me starting off not knowing anything about money, I believe that anybody can be financially independent. I believe that anybody can be financially successful. I did not start out in a home where I was taught about finances or taught anything about money. This is something that I've just pursued. In fact, I felt like this was a weakness that I turned into a strength over time. And now it's fun. It's a game. How can you get to where money goes from a place of stress to money is fun? Because it's fun to have extra money in your bank account, or it's fun to be able to invest. It's fun to watch your account grow as you've put your money to work for you. So I think about money differently. I think it as just a neutral thing, a very positive relationship with money. It hasn't always been that way. And as Jessica's mentioned, you have to do the deep work. You have to examine, why do I feel negative about money? Why do I feel that I'm never going to be wealthy? Is that something that my grandparents thought from the Great Depression? Is that something that my parents said? Maybe in just like, we can't afford this at the store. We form our money stories by age 7. So it's all on the subconscious level. So if you sat down with a piece of paper and you were willing to do the work and you said, what is my belief? Like, money for me is it stressful? Is it happy? Is it something you feel like you have to work really, really hard for? You have to grind and grind for money? Or is it something that you say, you know what? I always have opportunities. I have enough in my bank account. I have enough. I've always had enough. I know I'll make more money. And so what you focus on grows. So if I focus on, oh, I don't have enough money, I'm never going to be able to pay the bills. And that's what happens, because our subconscious mind is just taking directions. And so you have to be very, very careful what you say. And I have a policy: never say or let other people say anything about me that I don't want to be permanently true.
I like that.
And I think another thing, Jessica, we should talk about is people have a set deserve level. So if their parents said, I'm going to have to work really hard, I don't know if I'm ever going to retire, that kind of thing is picked up. And so people have deserve levels in different areas of your life. It could be happiness, success, wealth, health. I've even seen with foreign travel, people feel guilty. They've saved up for this trip and they can go, to Europe, let's say, and somebody else can't afford to do it. So they feel guilty the whole time. You can be really, really successful with health, or you can be really successful with relationships, but your money story might need some work. And it's not that you're bad. Nothing is permanent. And like Jessica said, we have all sorts of opportunities. It doesn't matter where you live in the world. I work with people all over the world, actually, who change their money stories. I believe that wealth is 80% how you think about money and your perspective on money, and about 20% actual skill. I can teach someone to become financially independent in an hour. That's not the process. It's going to take longer than that to do it, but it's actually a simple process when you get down to the truth. So what is the truth about money? Maybe you haven't had the opportunity to learn about it. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of education out there. There's a lot of advertising, but there's not a lot of education around money. So how can you educate yourself? Like taking small baby steps. And I think the first thing that you need to do is just consider, what's my story around money? Is this something that causes my body to be stressed out? Like, I really want you to get visceral with this. Like, think about, if I think about money, how does my body respond? Does my body respond like, oh, my chest tightens and I start like getting nervous and I start feeling agitated or whatever? I have people who will not even open their bank account because it's so stressful for them. And that's just an association. We really want to train our brains that money is a positive thing, and then it's a game even. And I do have people that get very triggered when I say making money is a game, but very wealthy people, that's how they view money. So how can we go from a negative connotation to a positive connotation? And you're really just retraining your brain. So Jessica, if you had a goal to do something and it pushes you just a little bit, we want to push our brains. We want to retrain our brains. So let's say Jessica, you want to travel around the world for 12 months straight. Let's say that's Jessica's goal. And if she says, I'm going to travel around the world, but I need to save up for that so I can take a year off, Jessica would need to celebrate like when she got her first day's worth of money. Then she would celebrate her first week's worth of money, and then her first month's worth of money. And so we're teaching our brain, I'm good with money and I'm going to celebrate, because when we have a celebration, we acknowledge. And
Yes.
so can we acknowledge that Jessica has a day's worth of savings? Like if it's $56 a day to travel around the world and Jessica saves $56, then we're going to celebrate. And we don't have to go out to dinner and spend the $56 that we've both saved. We can just acknowledge it. We can write it in our journal. We can tell someone we trust. But just acknowledging little things like I paid off a credit card or I paid off my car. We celebrate everything in my mastermind because we want to have wins where we retrain our brain to think in positive ways about money because there is an energy associated with it. And if I'm putting out negative vibes all the time, then that's what I'm going to get back. That's what I'm going to see. That's what I'm going to focus on. So your brain is really your biggest, easiest, free wealth generator. And you need to tell your brain what you want and stop focusing on what you don't want. And then you can move towards the direction. Now it's going to take some time to do that, but it's so worth it. And the people who I see make the biggest progress are working on what is my relationship with money and how am I training my brain to get what I want and focusing on just what I want instead of complaining about what I don't have. That doesn't matter. I'm going to focus on what I want.
So I want to ask you a question. As I mentioned, I feel like there's a great need for this particular education, this type of conversation, because of all the comments that I'm seeing. People say, well, I'm on a fixed income. Now, when I ask you this question, I want you to know that I have a mother who I've had to become her guardian. She has Alzheimer's. She's on a fixed income. So and this is the same mother that I was raised by, who I was homeless with when I was a child. So I have empathy and compassion, and I understand financial constraints, okay? The thing that I don't understand is the mindset around that. Okay, so how are you, Lisa, working to help people who it's the same amount of money every single month, and to them, that money doesn't feel like it's enough? Where do we start with the mindset conversation for the person who's like, hey, Lisa, that's fine. You might be talking to people that are working, but I'm not working. I'm disabled. I'm on a fixed income, or I've long since retired. I don't feel like I have the ability to go and contribute in the workforce anymore due to my age or physical issues or challenges that I'm dealing with. They feel like perhaps they have a sentence to having to maximize the dollars that are on their fixed income. How do you help those individuals who are really kind of entrenched in to me, it feels like they've got a poverty mindset, but they're really they feel stuck? How do we help those people?
I would say the first thing is we focus on cans instead of cannots.
Okay.
I hear a lot of this as well. The typical thing that we start with is I can't do that because.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're saying that, again, you're training your brain on that I can't do this because. Now that may or may not be true. So sometimes it's true and sometimes it's not. But if I focus on the cans, because we have the internet, most people have access to that via their phone. In fact, worldwide, it's incredible. Like more people have access to the internet now than ever have been. So we have, and I guess we follow the example of children. Children would set up a lemonade stand, or they would make bracelets and sell them on the corner. Like you can, I think the very first thing is to say, what can I do instead of what I can't do? Because you can always grow a garden, right? That's almost free. If you have even if you have a little pot with some soil in it, you can grow a tomato plant, right? That's not going to cost $1 million, but then you get fresh, nutritious food. And I've just saved some money on tomatoes. Like you're really only limited by your own creativity. And if you're arguing in your head right now with what I'm saying, that's good, because that just means that we can work with this when we get triggered, or we hear things of like, well, maybe that's true for you, but it's not true for me. I was a school teacher. They don't overpay school teachers. I did things on the side so that I could become financially independent. People told me, Lisa, it's just not possible what you want to do. You want to retire by the time you're 45. It's not possible. You're a teacher. And so I had to get creative. And so how do you get creative? What can you do? Because you have a skill set. Can you mentor or tutor younger kids? Can you teach someone to knit? Can you grow tomatoes on your balcony? So it's not about like changing your life every day. It's about changing your mindset today. And then that goes to tomorrow. And then we're going to have the tomato plant. Plus we're going to maybe walk dogs. And then we're going to whatever you can do. I think one of the most famous people on TikTok is a grandmother with her phone. And she tells teenagers how much she loves them every single day. Like you can tell people you love them every single day. In our community, we have a man who walks around the square and waves to the kids on the school bus, and they talk about him in the community. Everybody knows this guy. So you have a sphere of influence, no matter where you're at, even if you're waving from a window. You can feed stray cats. Like, there's no limit to the creative things that you could come up with. So I would focus on every single day, what can I do today, and what do I want my picture to look like? Like, what do I want my life to look like in a month from now? I think that long-term thinking is the most healthy perspective that you can have.
Yeah. What types of affordable tools do you recommend people use in order to get into the story? You mentioned journaling before. Is there a particular format or a framework that these are the top 10 things I should write down or focus on as it relates to working through my story and thinking about what I can do versus what are the things that are getting in my way right now?
The most powerful things are free, in like a paper and a pencil, right? Or pen. I prefer to write with pens. I think the more tangible, like if I can feel the pen in my hand, it's actually better, right? Because your brain's going to work with that. So taking a notebook and a pen and writing down my deserve level. And essentially we know our deserve level, Jessica, because what we have in life right now, that's our deserve level. So if
will you kind of break that down a little bit more? Because that's a new term for me. It might be a new term for other people listening as well.
So a deserve level is a subconscious set point of what you feel you're worthy of. And it's in all areas of life. So some people don't feel like they're worthy of a happy marriage, or they don't feel like they're deserving of making more money than they absolutely need just to scrape by. Some people feel like they don't deserve to live in a house in a good neighborhood. And it's a subconscious set point that's set from things that maybe your parents said around the dinner table, or that you heard on TV, or that a teacher made a comment of, or maybe traumatic experiences from the past, like being homeless. That would be considered a traumatic experience where you would want to work through that. So sitting down and saying, what do I believe about money? It's either hard or it's good, right? Like, I love money, but I never have any, like things like that, and just put it out on paper. So a deserve level is just a subconscious set point, and anything that we get in life that goes above that, your subconscious mind is going to say, oh, no, that is not comfortable. So I need to bring that back down. And you can spend it, you can gamble it away, you can drink it away, you can get rid of it some way, you can donate it. I've heard all sorts of stories where people have like maybe a cycle or a frustration that they continually feel, I can never get ahead, or I never quite have enough. That's a deserve level story. So really what we need to do is bring those beliefs to the conscious level. You can't stop it if it's just running on this cycle. You don't know why you're acting that way. You don't know why right when you get to this point where you're going to be super successful that you sabotage yourself. It just has to do with your deserve level. So knowing it exists and then saying, how do I bring my subconscious thoughts to my conscious level? That's actually going to solve quite a bit of problem. Because you're going to notice this is something that keeps happening to me. And it might be triggering for people to hear what you have right now is in direct correlation to your deserve level.
Your current state of
your current situation in health, in wealth, in relationships, everything is just manifesting what your deserve level is. So if you want something different, then we need to do the work. And I think that journaling and thinking and just writing, because you're taking something from your mind and you're allowing it to process on paper. It's not like you don't have access to the beliefs. We just need to bring them to the conscious level. And then you go, oh, that's why I do this. Yeah. So I'll give you an example. I've had clients who get to a certain mark in either their income or their investment accounts, and they stop investing or they stop getting clients because it's too much money. And when we have a discussion about it, it actually comes down to, well, they are way more successful than other people in their family. And so they feel like their family would ostracize them and they would lose the love of their family if they make more money than their parents did, or more money than anyone else in the family, even though they're very, very generous with their family. And so the love of their family subconsciously is more important than more money. So they would literally stop investing or stop making money until, like, let's say you made double what you would normally make in a month, or even triple, just because, the universe just aligned to make it this so, or that you worked or did something. Most people will end up on the couch in the fetal position, and then they'll stop working for the very next month. And so then things will level out. And so there's little subconscious things your minds will do to keep you in what's comfortable, even if it's an uncomfortable comfortable. And so knowing that that exists, and then just bring it to the conscious level, maybe just thinking back and saying, where did my money story come from? And then giving yourself permission to be the best that you can be. So what is it that you actually want? And then literally giving yourself permission. I would write this down, put it on the mirror. I give myself permission, and in your case, Jessica, to travel for an entire year, or whatever it is, whatever your goal is. And that's something that most people aren't going to do. So I'm using something extreme on purpose, but it could be, I'm going to pay off all debt or something,
Right.
whatever.
I'll bring it back down to like more tangible, realistic goal. During the whole COVID lockdown situation, they decided to make student loans 0% interest for a period of time. That's never happened. So I was like, I'm going to take advantage of that. And I put everything that I possibly could into paying down that debt. That debt is gone today because I took advantage of that time frame. And that was really exciting. I didn't write a blog about it. I didn't post it anywhere. I didn't really even tell anybody. But like for myself, I was like, yeah, like I have no student loan debt. That was wonderful to get rid of. I want to understand, once you give yourself permission to do this thing that is outside of your current deserve level, and admittedly, it's going to be uncomfortable. We all know that, to some degree, you need to be uncomfortable to grow. That's how you know you're growing. So you have to be able to push yourself. Once you've made that decision, what happens next? Is there a mechanism to like check yourself when you're using language that would be language that supports your current deserve level versus your future deserve level? Or if you catch yourself having a thought, that's a circular thought about like, oh, I can't have that, or I don't deserve it, or, oh, maybe even catch yourself judging somebody who's doing something that maybe you want, but you don't feel like you can have it right now, and then you're just mad. Because I'm seeing a lot of that on social media, and it's wild that to me, and I really want to help people understand how they can shift gears more appropriately.
Great questions. Let's start with the jealousy thing, because that's actually instructive. If I have jealousy towards somebody else, that just means that I know exactly what I want. So if I see someone with a house and I'm like, wow, that's beautiful. Like the way they've kept their yard, the grass looks great. Maybe they have a great garden area, or they just have, maybe it's on the beach or something. I'm just using examples.
Yeah.
If you see something that somebody else has and you become jealous, that's an indicator. That's just what you want. It's just a sign that you're leveling up, actually.
That's
But
information for you.
Yeah,
Okay.
we need to take the negative out of it, but you're actually informing yourself on what you want, which is really helpful. So I see jealousy as a form of instruction to you, as this is what I actually want. Doesn't that look amazing? Doesn't that seem like that would be such a happy situation? The second thing you ask is, what do we do after we identify? I would every single day give yourself permission. I would do that for like 2 months until it becomes a habit. You do have to check yourself. The cool thing is you can actually raise your deserve level, and people do all the time in little ways that they don't even realize it. Even if you're still like struggling with that negative self-talk, you're actually doing things to stretch yourself. So Jessica, when you paid off your student loans, you actually raised your deserve level, even though you didn't know it existed. You raised your deserve level because you, to yourself inside, were proud of yourself for doing it. And now you don't have student loan debt. And so now you've raised that deserve level. So it could be the smallest thing. I didn't buy a coffee today when I went out, and I used the money to pay off debt. And this would be like $7, right?
Right.
That is cause for celebration, and that raises your deserve level. You're just exercising your empowerment muscles. The most important thing you can do with finances and with wealth is empower yourself. We too often outsource that, and then we feel nervous because we don't know what's going on. Like, I don't know if I'm going to have enough. I don't know. So taking back that power, and that's a really big thing that I talk about, is empowering people with their money. if I know where my money's going or I know how much I'm earning, you are in charge of your dollars. You're the one that puts them to work. So money is something we have to earn over and over again. Wealth is money put to work. So if I can get the perspective of every dollar that I save and invest is now like a little employee that's working for me 24/7 for the rest of my life, having babies, having grandbaby dollars. This is how it works. If I plant a single apple seed, Jessica, how many apples am I going to get from a single apple seed?
From the tree, who knows? So many.
Infinity, right? Because if
Right.
we plant all the apple seeds in the tree that come off of this one seed, then with all those seeds, so that's kind of how money works, and you want it working for you. So if I plant $1 in my investment account, that dollar is a loyal employee. It never calls in sick. It never complains. It never needs a vacation day. It just has more little baby dollars that work for me and happily work for me for the rest of my life. So really what we want to do is put your money to work instead of you, and having that perspective of that's why it's worth not going to get the $7 coffee, because I want to pay off debt. So then once I pay off that debt, then I can use that money to either eliminate all the rest of my debt or start investing, and I can make that money work for me. So it's really just about perspective. Sometimes we get so into the money that we can't really see like the long-term perspective. But the more I do today for my happiness in 5 years or 7 years or 10 years, the better off it's going to be. And you actually feel more empowered with your money, and you get a settling. So your central nervous system doesn't want to be like it's running from a wild animal every time you think about, your money. You want it to be your central nervous system is sitting on a beach and listening to the ocean. That's how we want to have a response to money. But it's really just having kind of backing up a little bit and not saying things like I'll never, fill in the blank. You say this is what I want and I'm going to try to achieve it by this time, and then working towards that, celebrating the goals along the way, but really really being very careful what you say. And another thing, Jessica, that we haven't talked about is what is the child listening to a parent saying we can't afford that? Stop asking, we can't afford that. A lot of people got those messages.
Yeah.
And so money becomes a negative thing. Oh, we're never going to have enough. Versus, hey, why don't we help you have a job where we can, set you up? Like my nieces and nephews clean garbage cans in their neighborhood for like 10 or 20 bucks a can, and then they make bank during the summer. Like there's all sorts of little entrepreneur things that people can do. But if you teach your kids that they're in charge of their money, they literally could be millionaires by the time they're 20.
Absolutely.
All of the women that I work with, I insist that, and the men, but the women are really, really good about teaching their children. So I emphasize this with the women that I want you to teach your children and give them a legacy of wealth. The most important thing you can do is make money not stressful, but fun for your children. And that's a legacy that you can give them. So let's change that intergenerational talk about money. And if mom knew what she was doing with money, then this is fun. This is easy. Like you teach your kids to ride a bike, you teach your kids to ski, or whatever you teach your kids to do, that they feel comfortable with. And so if mom knew how to invest, then investing, this is just what we do and this is how it works. And so you take that burden away from the next generation and you give them this priceless gift of a legacy of wealth.
That's great. You mentioned if you were out and you skipped the $7 coffee and you use the $7 that you didn't spend on the coffee to pay down some debt. I think that that's a really appropriate, way to kind of get your feet wet into this space, is to think about all the choices that you're making. Specifically around, is there a more affordable way for me to get what I want sooner, faster by making choices with the money that I do have? So your point about the $7 coffee, if you make your coffee at home and have it before you leave the house, can that coffee just cost you 50 cents for the day rather than the $7? What are some ways that you help people analyzing and take inventory of their current spending and their current habits, and how might we best analyze where we can make those different choices that will support us getting what we want sooner, faster?
I would definitely start small. I think that people think, oh no, I'm going to do it all today. But if you do it all today, you're not going to do it tomorrow.
Right.
So we want to do something that's sustainable. So what can I do today that I can do for the rest of my life? And that's not like, I've had clients who like, we're not spending in November, but that's not sustainable. It's good to get a jump start if they want to. It's extreme. And I don't recommend that necessarily. They had already kind of worked out the main things, but that's how they kind of jump started this. And I actually recommend just looking at what is it that you want. So that again, we have to have the long-term perspective. We don't want to feel like we're not having something. We still want to feel abundance. We don't want to cut back to the bone. The mistake that people make is when money comes in, they hold on to it so tightly that they strangle it.
Yeah.
There's two ends of the scarcity stick. And one is, I don't earn very much money and I don't spend any of it. The other side of that same stick is, I earn tons of money and I spend all of it. Both of those are rooted in the belief that I'm never going to get more money.
Yeah.
So money actually has a really healthy flow to it. Money comes in, then I use money to pay expenses or to pay other people or invest it. But money actually has a life and a flow to it. So if I choke that off by not spending it or spending it all, then I end up with the same thing, because money can't serve me if I can't spend any of it. And it's a tool. So it's meant to be spent or meant to be grown or meant to like bring you happiness. Like what I focus on is, what are the things that are actually bringing me joy? So if I have a bunch of subscriptions that I'm not using, I would start there. Like, have I even looked at that for like the last year? And if I haven't, maybe it's time to cut that. So cutting things that don't actually take away from you, but then adding in things that bring you joy. Maybe if you canceled 4 subscriptions, you could afford to go on a date night or like a trip that you really want to do. And so I would first get rid of the stuff that doesn't make you happy. So Jessica, I'm not huge into budgeting because that really kind of makes me want to poke my eyes out. I'm into tracking, and I want to use my money in ways that bring me happiness, because again, it's a tool. And so I'm trading my time for money. So I'm giving in most cases, I'm giving my employer my time, and in exchange, they're giving me a paycheck. Really, money is unlimited. But time is not. Time is our most valuable possession. There's $3 trillion that change hands every single day. And we just want to get a bucket and dip down into that. And so if you can think in a bigger perspective about money and that flow, so I would get rid of the things that you don't enjoy and then add in a few things that you absolutely love. And this starts to compound, and then you have a really happy life, and you're not spending things. You're not just spending money to get that really quick boost of adrenaline because I spent this money, but now I'm stressed out because it's on my credit card. So I would do a couple things. Cut out the things that don't bring you joy, you're not using, you just bought to impress other people who, you don't care about. Get rid of all of that. And then start paying, like today, if you have $1,500, put that towards debt. Reducing debt empowers people. So fear doesn't build wealth, action does. So if I take action, even if it's a tiny action, tiny thing, which is for some people opening the bank account, right? That is scary for some people. So start with what I dislike and take out the joyless things and add in joy. And then start working towards what is it that I actually want. But I would definitely pay down debt like you did. You talked about like kind of a milestone event with people. Someone who has paid off their house, someone who has paid off their car, someone who has paid off their student loan debt, their credit cards, any personal loans, that person feels like a rock star. You can't explain to another person what that feels like. And so I encourage people to pay off debt because it allows you to feel like you are the master of your own money, which you are, but you can't hand those reins to somebody else and feel like you're in control. You have to take the reins yourself.
Yeah. I think too, in our culture, in our society, there's this oftentimes access to quick capital or, cheap cash, but you don't understand the game. And so if you're somebody who is financially constrained and you're getting, calls or letters or emails or offers for, this payday loan, this thing with this high interest rate, we can help you pay off your credit card, but you're going to be paying 15, 20%, maybe 30% interest on that money that you're getting today to take care of this thing. I think people have to be very, very, very careful about that. Extremely careful. There's nothing better, to your point, than being debt free. There's nothing better than to feel empowered than to not have any debt and to have the full access of all of your money that you're earning, and to be able to make choices, like you said, grounded in joy. I find that when you can get yourself there, your joy, if it happens to be helping other people, now you have the capacity to help other people. So it doesn't have to be massive. Small amounts of money can help people move forward very quickly. As it relates to reducing debt, once you focus on that, then what's the next step? Is the intent really to save, or is the intent to get aligned around your joy, so you can have that flow with money where it comes in and you're joyful when it goes out because you're buying things that are making you happy, or you're contributing to people or circumstances or situations where you know you're benefiting them. And then when your money comes back in, you know, you get to spend some time with it, and then you can choose to let it go out again. You don't want to chokehold it, but definitely when you have the joy factor, getting goosebumps when I'm talking about this right now, because my belief about money is that it's just energy. And my belief is that the best way for us to be in the flow is to be what you said, to be joyful, to be aligned with that. It makes everything move quicker, faster, smoother, and change can happen. Great, amazing change can happen quickly.
Great question. So first of all, we want to make choices that give us more choices.
Okay.
And paying off debt gives us more choices because we have more time. People like to, maybe you want to work part-time, maybe you want to become financially independent. So with the budget part of, I have money coming in, I'm using that, like the electric bill is probably not going to bring you joy. I live in Utah and it's freezing in the winter. So my electric bill brings me a lot of joy. It gives me lights, it gives me warmth. And so you might think of it in that way. What is this getting me? And then after you've kind of adjusted that, like what are the expenses that I just don't really need on here, but I have on here, and I've paid off debt, what's the next step? So that's your question. And the next step is, most people in the world have their investments mostly in a tax sheltered investment, such as a 401k, a super, a LIRA, a pension. There's different names for it all over the world, but an employee, sort of a forced savings account. And this is what I would do. So you've just paid off debt. You can do this as you're paying off debt because I want both balls to be rolling. So we want to start as many balls rolling as we can. The first one is you want to pay off debt, even if it's $5. If you can do more, then do that. The second thing is we want to get the investment ball rolling. In your 401k, your IRA, whatever you want to call it, I would contribute up to the match because that's free money.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to contribute up to the match in that. And then I would also open up a brokerage account outside of that. And I would get into index funds and just put the index funds like an S&P index fund. And that you can retire on that over time, just doing that. It's a very simple way to take advantage of the market. Often I get into people's accounts with them. I help them reallocate their accounts, and most people's accounts are allocated incorrectly, unfortunately. And so we get into their accounts and find that they're getting a 3 to 6% rate of return, where the overall market may have been gone up 30%. And so, but they're also paying a financial planner 3 to 6%. So they're actually not making, and the only money that they're making is, you know, by them contributing in there above and beyond their own fees. So you can go into your account, you can look up for a low cost index fund for the S&P 500. You can put your money in that and then pile it all on that. That's a simple way to start building wealth that is radically transformational.
Yeah.
And you will see.
Give a disclaimer right here, though, just for
Yeah.
purposes of financial advice. Do you have one you want to give?
There's no guarantee of anything in the market. You can't control when the market goes up or down. One thing I will say, if the market goes down, buy more, but you can never control. I can't control what the market does, and you can't control what the market does, but if you're in it, so it's a long-term strategy. It's a long-term strategy. Let's talk about this. So as far as disclaimers go, what if I put my money in the market and then the market went down and I was afraid and I pulled my money out?
When the market's going down.
Yeah, because fear never doesn't build wealth, right? But what if I did the opposite? So we're just flipping everything on its head. So successful investing is counterintuitive. What if when the market went down, instead of selling, I bought more? So if we go back to 2000, 2008, the financial crisis in 2008, if we go to when the coronavirus hit, we had a 3-month drop in the market, and in 2022 we had a recession. So that's like the last 20-ish years of drops in the market. Has the market always recovered? And the answer to that is absolutely. And it's gone continually higher. So from 08 to 2022, the market went up for like 14 years straight. The market's job is to go up and down, and uncertainty and fear impact the market. So, well, and we need to go back and say we skipped one step. So after you pay off debt, you need to have an emergency savings.
Thanks. Yeah.
Invested in a high yield savings account. Right now you can get 3.7. It used to be higher. The interest rates are coming down, and so will, the amount that you get. And then just allocating, even just putting more money into your 401k so that you can get up to that employer match. That alone will make most people's lives so much better, because the more you have in that, the more you have to withdraw from later. So although we can't control markets, we can use them to our advantage if we have a perspective of long term. So let's say someone's investing, Jessica, and they're putting it in their 401k. The market's going to go up and down no matter what. If I give advice and say, hey, put more money in your 401k, that's going to go up and it's going to go down. But when it goes down and you put money in there and you don't stop, you continue putting money in there, you're going to get what's called a cost dollar averaging, which means I'm going to buy shares at a lower price. And then those shares are going to recover eventually. And then it's going to keep going up and up over time. And so it allows you to have more money in savings. So the one thing that people don't know is, how much money do I need to retire? And I hear it often, I'm never going to be able to retire. I'm just going to have to work until I die. And that makes every paycheck worthless to you, that perspective, because it doesn't matter what you do with your paychecks if you believe that that is true.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be true. And so you can move forward with investing or paying off debt and then having emergency savings. Those two things are going to be monumental. And you may say, you know what, I have so much debt, I'm never going to be able to get out from under that. First of all, we take out the never and say, how can I always change something negative to how can I do this? Because we want to focus on the positive thing and how we can have growth.
When you ask yourself a question, how can I get out of debt? How can I do this? Especially if you ask yourself before you go to bed at night, you're planting the seed there for your subconscious, your unconscious, to work it out for you. I think you should ask yourself every night before you go to bed, how can you do it? Because you continually are giving that like creative cue in your brain to come up with these solutions. As you mentioned at the top of the call, we're only limited by our creativity. So the next morning you might wake up, and if you're thinking about what gives me joy, and you realize that walking dogs is like, you think that that would be the coolest job ever, and maybe you have a full-time job, but you realize, hey, on Saturdays, I could be walking dogs. You might start a side hustle where you walk some dogs, and then you find out that you're really good at it. And then you find out that people are so appreciative of you that they're willing to overpay you. And one thing can lead to the next thing, and you might have your own company soon, and you might be able to leave your 9 to 5, or you've got that crabby boss that you don't like and the coworker that you don't enjoy hearing from, and you can become empowered. It might take some time, probably won't happen instantly, but I love the idea of asking ourselves, how can I solve this problem? How can I get out of it? Because again, in America, there's unlimited opportunities and potential for us to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. So we've covered a lot of ground today. Gosh, we've talked about mindset. We've talked about understanding your money story and your deserve level. We've talked about making sure that you are filling your brain with information that's going to help it be a better wealth machine. Talked about, like I said, paying off debt, having a savings, emergency savings account, and then starting, down the path of investing wisely. What other things do you think are really critical for people to know that they can take action on today without having an advisor like yourself? We'll add all of your information if people want to reach out to you. We're going to put all your contact info not only in our show notes, but we'll post it up here in some pop-ups. But what are the outstanding elements that we haven't covered that are really important for people to know specifically about choices and steps that they can take today? They don't need anybody to advise them on how to do that. They can just take action themselves.
The very most powerful thing that people can do if they have any kind of a savings account or if they have any kind of investment is actually go in and actually look at the return that you're getting. It should say return, and it's not 1 year is really helpful. Year to date is not as helpful because we're in early part of the year. But looking at what your returns are and then trying to figure out what would make me feel better. Do I want to pay off debt if I have debt? Or do I want to just put up my 401k like by a percentage point? Some people who feel like they're not very good at savings, they just automatically increase their 401k contributions by a percentage every single year, so that they're just putting more into it. And it's, for them, it's a forced savings plan, but then they end up with more. So just taking little tiny steps that you'd say, yeah, this is a step in the right direction for me. So deciding what that is. But for most people, paying off debt and investing more would be the empowering next step.
What words of wisdom do you have for our listeners out there? If they feel inspired, they're ready to make some change, what would you say to them?
I think that short-term thinking keeps us in short-term problems, and long-term thinking allows us to shape our kind of our destiny. I am very, very proponent of lifestyle design. And what that means is I'm going to actively work towards my ideal outcome. And Jessica, your ideal outcome might be different than mine. It might be different from somebody who's listening to this podcast, but you can shape. And I'll give you an example. I lived in a small townhouse for a number of years so that I could save to become financially independent. But my dream was to buy a house in an area where it was beautiful in all directions. And that's why I live in Utah, because I have mountains all around me in this beautiful area that I'm in. But that was a goal I worked on for a really long time. And so I want people to understand that they are empowered to like shape their own lifestyle. So lifestyle design is actively working towards something that brings you joy every single day. Some people want to live in the mountains. Some people want to live on the beach. Some people want, they might want their own little apartment, or they've always wanted to live in a place where they can have a dog or something like that. Like everyone has this inside of them. So what is your ideal lifestyle? And it doesn't need to be complicated. Maybe you want to live off grid and grow your own vegetables. Like it doesn't need to be complicated, but it needs to bring you joy and to actively work towards that. So for me, financial freedom means that I can live the lifestyle that brings me joy, and that I can also contribute and give back to other people because that brings me joy. And so actively working and believing that you can have lifestyle design. I've seen it so many times. And knowing I'm just going to take a baby step towards that. The smaller the step we take in the beginning, the more successful we are in the end.
I love that. I think it's really important too to pace yourself. You said small steps are okay, they're appropriate, because you want to be able to integrate the change that you're making. You want it to be a lasting change, not like a fleeting, oh, I did it today, but I don't want to do it tomorrow because I took a step that was so big and so hard and it was so uncomfortable, So I really appreciate all your time, your words of wisdom. Lisa, will you tell us how people can get in touch with you, where they can follow you on social, how they can access your programs and potentially even work with you?
You bet. The easiest way is to go to my website, which is Lisa Smith, my name, lisasmith.com, and all the information is there.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you so much, Lisa. It was a pleasure. And we are all going to work on joy with money.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Power in your purpose.